Okay, cool. I hope you guys are excited as I am. This is the first, I guess, public look at the game. Um, yeah, but before we kind of do the walkthrough of the application, I just want to set some expectations. The first expectation is that the game is not fully done yet. This is still a work in progress version of the game, but we have a lot of the big functionalities ready for people to start testing in the beta test, which training camp's kicking off tomorrow. Super excited about that. But yeah, I just want to set some expectations that we're still basically enhancing every single aspect of the application. So for example, like some sound effects, we're still working on that. So we might have some placeholders in there. Similarly, we're still working on optimizing certain aspects of the game to make it faster. So yeah, just keep that in mind as you're going to be watching the game and as you're going to be playing the game over the next week. Another thing to set expectations is that I have heard that my upload speed because of my internet is a bit slow. So the video might look a little choppy at points. I assure you that the actual gameplay is a lot smoother than the video that you're going to see here. So when you're actually playing, it should be a lot smoother. And we're spending an insane amount of time on just optimizing the actual gameplay to give everyone, regardless of your hardware, a really good experience. So just wanted to kind of set the expectation with that. And with that said, let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen over here and then show you guys what we got going on. Okay. So before I start talking, I just want a yes or no from Malcolm, if you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, yes, we can see it. You're
Okay,
clear.
perfect. Perfect. Um, the first thing to note is that this is the site that you access the game, gaming.aiarena.io. And I know a lot of you are probably trying to access this right now. It won't work for most of you because you have to be whitelisted in order to access it. So if you try accessing it and you're not whitelisted, it'll just actually, I'll show you what'll happen. I'll switch to like a new account I just made this morning. If I try accessing it, you'll just find this 404 page not found. But for all the people that are going to be beta testing, I'm going to be whitelisting you and pushing it out tomorrow just before training starts. And we'll put out an announcement when we do this so that everyone can start accessing the gaming site. I'll switch back to an account that actually works. And this is what will happen essentially when you first come. We'll load up all the environment assets, and then we'll start loading up everything to do with like the data from the blockchain and stuff like that. Now, this scene that you see right here, this is outside of the arena. This is the home page. And again, some of this is still a work in progress, so just take that as you will. But there are two main buildings here that you have access to. We have this one, which is the main arena, and this is where all the action happens. And then we have this one, which is the marketplace, and this is where you would buy various things in the form of NFTs or maybe other things as well. Now, we actually do have 3D models for the inside of the marketplace. However, for this beta test, we are omitting it because we want to focus on core gameplay. And so the only thing that'll happen if you click on the marketplace is you'll be brought to this screen and this pop-up, which is essentially for you to claim your airdrop. Now, for all the beta testers, we will give you one fighter as an airdrop. Most people will have the fighter that the regular AI Arena fighter, and then one person on each team will have a Dendroid. The process to claim it is the exact same. We just do everything on the back end to basically figure out which one to give you. So essentially, once you come here, you'll see this button to claim your fighter, and then you just click on it and then just sign a MetaMask transaction, and then it'll appear in your wallet after it confirms. Um, Note here, I already claimed mine, so I have no further airdrops available, and this will happen once you claim yours as well. If you want to try and cheat the system and try to claim more than one, you can try. It won't work. But yeah, so you're only able to claim one fighter at a time. So that is for claiming a fighter. Where you'll spend most of your time after you do that is inside the arena. So when you go inside the arena, we are brought into the locker room. And you can think of the locker room as your main hub, and you have access to a bunch of different types of things. So for example, here you see that you can see your fighter. And over here, you actually have a side menu where you can click and get access to all your fighters. Or you can click on this little platform over here. But I'll just click through here just to show you. Now here you see I have more than one fighter because I've allowed myself to have more than one fighter. But for everyone in the beta test, you're only going to have one. And there's a few things that you can see about your fighter right here. You can see their ELO rating, and I'll show you the leaderboard a bit later where you can compare against other people. But you can see their ELO rating, their battle record, how many times they've trained. You can see other stats, sort of like your power, speed, range, and defense over here. And this is just some like rarities of each of the visual attributes that you have. And then, so yeah, this is sort of another fighter that we have. And then here is the dendroid. So this is specifically for the people that own dendroids. So you'll see that we don't have rarity badges over here because all the dendroids are the same rarity. But we do have a special feature with the dendroids in that if you click this little edit button in the bottom right, you get brought up to this menu where you can attach a PFP from another NFT collection, right? So you can scroll down, find whichever PFP that you have. So for example, if you were to have like an on-chain monkey, for example, you would click on this. Right now, I don't have any in my wallet, but if you did, then it would show all of the on-chain monkeys that you own, right? And then you can see the whole selection, and then you can click on any one of them, and then you'll have a button pop up here to confirm it. And once you just click that button, then you'll be able to attach your PFP onto the dendroid. And so, for example, to see what this looks like once it's on a dendroid, we can go over here, and I know this NFT attached one. And over here, you can see that this is what it looks like when you attach sort of an NFT to a dendroid. Shout out to Autonomous. So that's sort of the basic functionality for sort of like how to attach things to a dendroid. I'll switch back to this fighter because this is my main girl. Yeah, I'll pause for a second to see if anybody has any questions. I'm leaving it up to you, Malcolm, to tell me if anyone has any questions or if I should just keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going for now.
All right, cool. So I briefly looked at the leaderboard for a second, but I'll just dive in here. So in the leaderboard, yeah, there are a bunch of different things that you can kind of like, you can basically see where you stack up relative to everyone. And over here, we have all the ELO ratings over here, and I'm pretty sure this is UK. He's dominating the competition. If you want, you can also sort in descending order and see who is absolutely getting crushed. This person over here is getting destroyed. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's one of my fighters actually when I was doing the testing. But yeah, so you can kind of sort through here. You can sort by ID or whatever you want, and you can basically see where you stack up relative to everyone. Basically, I'll go back for a second over here. Now, in the elevator, this is where you access the gameplay. Now, I'm going to not go there for a second. First, I'm actually going to go into the AI inspector just to show you guys what we're working with over here. So the AI inspector is where you can come to analyze your AI's policy. Basically, what that means is like you can see what it'll do in every possible scenario. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on here, so I'll break it down into various sections. In the top left corner over here, this is what defines the AI's policy. So this will tell you basically what direction it's likely to go in, and this will tell you what other actions it's likely to take. A little bit of background here. So what we implement is a dual-headed neural network, which in English, that just means that the AI is making two actions at the same time. right? It's deciding on two things at the same time. One thing that it's deciding is what direction to press. The other thing that it's deciding is which non-directional action to press. And this is the legend over here. So we have grab, shield, jump, attack, and special. And so what that means is that the AI can combine a direction with one of these at the same time. So for example, if it did up and attack, that would be an uppercut. But if it did down and attack, then it's a low sweep. And so now you can start putting all these different things together to make a lot of different types of moves. And so another thing to note over here is that these are all probabilities, right? So the farther out a point is on the circle, the higher the probability that it'll take that action. So you see here, the highest probability that it'll do is go to the upright. And you see here, that's reflected on the joystick. Now here, these are all probabilities that it'll take all of these. And there's one that I'm actually omitting over here, and it's the probability of doing nothing, right? And you see that the AI is not pressing another button. It's because the probability of doing nothing is higher than all of these probabilities. And the way to interpret it is you can just imagine that everything has to sum up to 100. So if these sum up to 60, for example, that means the remainder has to be the probability of doing nothing, which would be 40% in that example. But let me move it around just so you guys can see basically the AI in a different situation. So here, the probability of doing attack is the highest. And so now you see that the AI is doing two things. It's pressing attack and it's holding upright. And in this case, the up dominates this aspect of the policy. So what will happen is the AI will do an uppercut, and you see that reflected over here. So I hope this makes sense. And this is critical to understand this in order to understand what's going on in the AI inspector, because now you can see what happens when you move everything around. And you realize that, okay, when I move it around to here, it changes the probabilities in this way. So for example, here, this was a bit like fatter, for example, versus here, it's a bit skinnier, which means that it's more likely to do the upright than in this case, because the probabilities are a bit more spread out. I'm going to pause for a second and see if anyone has any questions.
Yes, but not regarding the AI inspector itself. Amy Plexus was asking the question: is the ELO's rating equal to the leaderboard score?
The ELO ranking is equivalent. So your rank on the leaderboard. Hold on, let me go back. I can pop back into here. So the higher the ELO rating, the higher your rank, right? So if you have the highest ELO rating, then you will have the best rank. So you'll be number one, and so on and so forth. So that's how we figure out the ranks, is by ELO rating. Does that make sense?
Yep, very clear. Alex asked the question: do we have to exchange any equipment for our character, or is it there by default?
What do you mean by equipment?
I think he means some sort of purchase the items.
Oh no, it's there by default. So I don't know if the question is because you see that this one has like special gloves or something like that. But no, it's when you claim your NFT, it'll come with all of this stuff equipped with it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha, very clear. I think we're good for now. Oh, there's one more. Can we use controller to play or train?
Yes, I use this controller when I play a lot. So we give you the option to use either a controller or a keyboard. You can choose. Now, I don't know if the question was because we only saw this, so maybe we don't know if we can use a keyboard as well. But yeah, you can use a controller or a keyboard. We have thoroughly tested with Xbox and PlayStation controllers. We're still in the process of testing with other types of controllers because we want to make this as accessible as possible. But for now, most of the testing has been with Xbox and PlayStation. So if you have any of those, then those should work really fine. One thing to note is that in the inspector, you will only see this controller and that's for two reasons. One is because like it'd be a little cluttered if you have a keyboard on here and it's just like little keys. especially with the full keyboard that we allow. And also what we do is, if you're using a keyboard, we basically convert it into an action space that maps onto a controller. So you're able to use a keyboard or controller, that doesn't matter. But we just do the mapping in the background just to map it onto here. It really doesn't matter. It's mostly for like simplicity's sake. But the end result will be the exact same.
Last question. So basically, we could see the probability of action our AI will take on every possible situation after we train them.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah, that was the question.
That
Yeah,
was a
exactly.
question.
Yeah, exactly. And let me actually dive a bit deeper into this just to really show you how deep you guys can analyze this, because you can literally analyze every possible thing you can imagine. So what I just showed you was, for example, just moving some fighters around. And so let me take this. So this is the opponent fighter, and I'll move it around and just watch the probabilities start changing. You see that the probabilities start changing, like our agent is doing different things in different scenarios. And by the way, I just randomly initialized this agent prior to this call. So this agent doesn't really know how to behave, right? I haven't taught it anything. And so I'm going to actually teach it something live on this session. But for example, yeah, you see right now that the probabilities are changing when I'm moving this around, but there's a lot more things you can do than just that. For example, if you right click on either fighter, it'll change their direction. And you can see that changing the direction also changes the probability. Now, what you can also do is you can move some platforms around too, right? And you see moving the platforms around changes the probability. You can also turn a platform into a wall by right-clicking it, and a wall into a platform. And this will really allow you to make the stage however you want. You can even add more platforms if you click on this up here. So I just added another platform over here. I can put it in. Let me just add another one. And you can start making your own sort of environment. And the reason why this is important is because if you look in the map selector, we have a bunch of different types of maps over here that you can choose from. And these are all the maps that you'll potentially battle in. And if I just click on one of them, it'll change the configuration to that map. So I'll click on this one. This is the configuration for that map. But if I click on this one, for example, now it looks very different. And so it's important to train your AI to do well on all types of maps and not just do well on one map. In machine learning, we call this overfitting, where you only learn how to do something in a very specific scenario, right? I.e., like you have a set of training data, so only what you show it, and it only knows what to do based on what you show it. But the true thing that we're trying to accomplish here is generalization. So we want an AI to do well also on the things we show it, but in addition to that, on things we haven't shown it. So we want it to be able to either extrapolate or interpolate to do well in scenarios that it has not seen before. Because you never know, we might throw in a new arena in the future that's different than any of these. And so you want to train your AI to know how to do well in all possible scenarios. And yeah, so you can kind of play around with this. You can kind of see the different stages just to see if your AI will do good in those stages or if it's doing what you expect in those stages. In addition to adding just platforms, you can also add projectiles because each fighter has an element like a fire, water, or electric one. So if I add in a projectile over here, it's over here, you can move it around, you can position it. You can say that right now it says P1, so it's coming from you. You can say it's from your opponent, right? You can even rotate it around, right? You can change the direction. And this is important because now you can start training your AI to say, okay, maybe when the opponent's projectile is facing me, maybe I want to do the shield. But if it's my projectile and it's facing me, I don't really care because it's not going to hurt me. And if it's facing the opponent, then maybe I want to follow up with another attack, right? Because this will like bait them, then I hit them with the next attack, right? Like you can start creating all these different types of scenarios and really make the AI your own. And if at any point you want to just remove any of these, you can just click the X button over here. Similar to the platforms, you can just remove them over here. And if you ever want to get back to a specific scenario, you can get back to it with the map select over here. There's a lot more on the AI inspector. Maybe I'll just go through all of it and then I'll pause for questions. Another thing that you can do is you can adjust the stocks over here. So this is how many lives you have left. You can just adjust that. You can adjust how much damage you've taken, the percentage over here. You can adjust your elemental power up over here because you aren't able to use your special until it's fully powered up. And so maybe you want to train your AI to not waste a button press on the special until you're fully powered up, right? And everything that you do on yourself, you can also toggle on your opponent as well over here. So you can toggle all this stuff. In fact, you can also change the element of your opponent because maybe you want to see how your fighter does against an electric opponent or what they will do against a fire opponent. And you see that the probabilities start changing over there. Oh, also speaking of which, one thing I didn't show you about the projectile is that you can right click it and you can change the type of the projectile as well. You can change it to a water projectile or an electric projectile. And you see here that the probabilities start to really change when you change the type of projectile. Also, you can change the weight of the opponent because maybe you want to know what your AI will do against a heavy opponent compared to a light opponent, right? Because ideally you would want to train it to fight differently against both of those. For example, if you're fighting against a fighter that's faster than you, maybe you need a different strategy than fighting against a fighter that's heavier than you, right? And then lastly, I'm going to pause after this, I promise. Lastly, you have this down here, which shows you, which basically tells your AI what is the last action you took. And this will tell the AI what's the last action your your opponent took, sorry. And so for example, here, I can show it that the last thing I did was punch. And you see that when I punch, it changes the probabilities. And maybe that I did an uppercut that also changed the probabilities. And maybe that your opponent is punching. That's also changing the probabilities. Now, why is this important? Because let's start with the opponent. I'm sure you'd probably want to train your AI to do something different if your opponent is attacking you versus if they're turned away, they're not attacking you, and they're vulnerable, right? You'd probably want to show your AI something different to do in that scenario. And in terms of like your previous action, this is really important for combos. Let me just remove this, clear this. So if your opponent is above you, and maybe I just did an uppercut, to follow up, maybe I want to train it to do a flip kick, right? And the flip kick is up plus special. And so what I would do is I would hop into here. I would basically put it in this specific scenario. I would say, okay, my current action is uppercut. And then I see that it's very low on flip kick. So I would hop into training, which I'm going to show you guys next. And then I would specifically do that. I would do an uppercut first, and then I would do flip kick. And then when I come back into here, what should happen, if you train properly, is that you see that when you do the uppercut, that the probability of doing a flip kick should increase dramatically. And yeah, so these are just a bunch of ways that you can use the AI Inspector. Like I mentioned at the beginning, you can really analyze every possible scenario. So it's a super, super powerful tool to build a super, super powerful AI. And actually, before I pause for questions, you'll see that there's this pulsing button over here that's called Start Tour. If you click it, what will happen is you'll get this little thing over here. And then if you click that, then it actually walks through the whole AI Inspector. So if you don't want to come back and listen to me ramble about it, you can just come through here and just click through it, and it'll tell you exactly what each part of the AI Inspector does. So just close it. And if you close it at any point, you can just pick it back up where you left off. Unless, of course, you click skip, which then it goes to the end. And then once you go to the end, you have to kind of restart at the beginning. I'm going to pause for a second. I've been talking for a long time. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, we got some good question.
All right, let's hear it.
Andy asked that, can you clear what your AI has previously learned?
Yes, sir, you can, absolutely. That's what this reset AI button is at the bottom left corner. So basically, if I'm not going to do it now because there's no point. I already reset it, but basically, I'll show you guys. So if you click it, what's going to happen is you're going to get a MetaMask pop-up. It's going to basically ask you to sign this message, which is just to prove that you own this model. And the reason for that is because we don't want people kind of trying to like override your models and reset your models for you. So basically what we're doing is we're making you sign a message that you own this model and that you want to basically like reset it. And so once you do, you click sign, then it'll create the model, sort of like the new model in the backend. Then you get another MetaMask pop-up to upload your model to the blockchain, and then you'll just click approve. I'm not going to do that because there's no point over here, so I'll just cancel it. But that's how you reset your model.
Spaceman asked a really technical question.
Mm.
Is it only one last action, or is it possible to define 2 to 3 previous action?
Yeah, so right now we've limited it to one last action. That's a great question. If we were to do multiple last actions, I feel like we would probably use a different neural network architecture, something like a recurrent neural network or like an attention model. We'd probably do something like that. For now, we're just using feed-forward neural networks. And so while we technically could use multiple last actions, it'll just grow the action space a little too large, and it's not probably worth it for now. But I can definitely see the merit of people wanting to use a sequence of actions if you want to string together really complex combos. So yeah, that's a great question. For now, we don't allow it. Maybe in the future. And one thing I'll say is that like if we do allow it, whether that's by altering the state space for the feed-forward neural network, it's growing the dimensionality of the inputs. And usually, when you grow the dimensionality of the inputs, it makes learning actually more difficult because of this thing called the cursive dimensionality, where essentially the more features you have, the easier it is to overfit your model. I can probably do a separate session on this just to explain it in more depth. But yeah, so we don't do that. And then on the more complex architecture side, yeah, we've opted to basically leave it lighter weight, which is why we use a feed-forward neural network, because I think people are impatient. I certainly am, and so I don't think people would be willing to wait such a long time for it to actually train, because it'll take longer to train as well. It also takes longer to perform inference. So yeah, and so I think people care a lot about speed, and I don't think the improvement in the policy will be too great to overcompensate for a lot of this stuff.
And Spaceman also asked another question: can we detect striking range as in the AI inspector? Is there any action
Right?
based on striking distance?
Oh yes, yeah. So I will show you a full suite of all the things you can train on. That is certainly one of them. So for example, you'll see that maybe not in this scenario. Hold on, let me like reset a bunch of this stuff, but you'll see that I guess not so much this policy, but you can train it to explicitly, the closer you get, the higher the probability of punching, because one of the inputs is actually your distance to your opponent. And I'll actually show you guys how to train on the distance to your opponent in this session. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that we can train on. And yeah, definitely one of them is the distance to your opponent.
Last question before we move on here, by Dante. Will the AI profile be for individual characters?
Like this over here, yeah, this is for individual characters. So a shortcut is that you can go up here. You see that it's AI inspector /0. This is because my token ID is 0. And so, for example, I can try accessing token ID 1. This is another one that I own, right? And then it'll switch to that one. However, if I try accessing token ID 20, I'll just refresh the page. I don't own it, so it'll be stuck in this loading loop and it'll never load. And that's just because we don't want people to have access to other people's models, because then, while it could be interesting where people can train like like counterfactual policies to specific models, we kind of don't want that. We like preserving like privacy to the extent that we can. And so I feel like if someone spent a lot of time to train this model, I don't think really people should have a shortcut into trying to just specifically target them. Although I can see why some people would want to do that. I'll just go back to my girl over here.
Yep, I think we're good now.
Cool. Yeah, we got into it over there. So I'll just go back into the locker room. I just refreshed the page, so it has to reload the assets. But over here, yeah, we're back in. Okay, so I should keep going, eh? Let me go into training. So like I mentioned, this is where all the gameplay modes are. We have training, which is where you're actually going to teach your AI what to do and how to do things. We have simulation, which is where you can go and test out what your AI has learned. So you can test it out against one of our pre-trained or like predetermined rules-based agents. So for example, if I click on simulation, you have these various agents that you can test against over here. I won't do it right now. I'll go into training first. But actually, before I do that, we also have ranked battle. This is where you eventually come to compete once you feel like you're good enough. And this will actually, I'll go back for a second. This will have you compete against everyone on the leaderboard, right? And so, for example, if you're like this guy on the leaderboard's #1, shout out UK, I'm pretty sure that's him. Then what we do is we select a pool of people close to you on the leaderboard. So for example, this person would never fight the last person on the leaderboard because the mismatch is too large. And so we want people to always fight people relatively within their skill set. Of course, if someone is so much better than everyone, then it might seem that no one's in their skill set. And so they're obviously going to be battling people that are much worse than them. This is just because they need to fight somebody. But what we do, we try our best to kind of match up against people within the same skill range. And of course, the more players there are, the more likely you'll fight someone in your skill range because it's a lot more dense of an opponent pool. When it's sparse and at the beginning, you might see a lot of like big like asymmetries between performance, but over time, this should balance out. Any questions before I go into training?
Ryan asked a question like, does the
Mhm.
reset require gas fee?
Yes, it does. Yep.
And
Yeah, the reason is because we're pushing the hash to the blockchain. So it's a very, very small gas fee, by the way, but it does require a little bit.
and this user asked that, can we set the key navigation in however we like it to be, or is it the WASD config?
Great question. I will show you. Yes, you can set it to however you want. Oh, actually, speaking of navigating, sorry, I'm going to hop back into the inspector for a sec. One thing I didn't show you guys is this navigator over here. And this is actually really useful because you see here, everything's kind of small. You can actually zoom in and move this thing around over here, right? And now you can actually like analyze it in a much more fine-grained approach over here. You can move things around very, very accurately. And then if at any point you want to zoom out again, you can do that. So yeah, we provide this functionality for you. But with that said, I will show you how to change the keystrokes as well. So let's hop back into gameplay. Let's choose training and let's get into it. So we have a bunch of different opponents that you can select. You have the dummy, which basically does nothing. It just tries to get back on stage. We have your AI. This is actually the AI, like your neural network. You'll be battling against it, and a lot of people really enjoy like just training an AI and then seeing if they can beat it and just battling against it. It's actually quite fun because it's like this is your creation and you're battling against it. And then we have one of the pre-made ones from the AI arena, which has a well-balanced policy. So it does a bit of everything. Now, what we're thinking in the future is creating specific agents for specific types of training. So for example, maybe an agent that only punches, or maybe an agent that only shields, right? Just so you can target training a lot more specifically. We don't have that yet, probably not for this beta, but we're hoping to get that a bit later down the road. So I'll just select the dummy just to show you guys. And then once you select your training opponent, then you can select your stage. I'll just select the main arena over here. Now it just has to load. So the loading screen should only happen the first time that you load up the gameplay, every time you visit the page. And this is because we're loading in all the gameplay animations, all of the stage assets and stuff like that. After it loads for the first time, then if you try playing again, it'll be like almost instant because we cache everything. So let me start the match over here. So there's a few things to note with training. The first thing to note is you're controlling your fighter over here, okay? And you'll also notice that there's this button at the top left corner. This is for data collection. So basically what this is saying is this will tell the AI when to pay attention to what you do. So when it's off and you do stuff, your AI is actually not going to be paying attention. But when you turn it on, you'll see that the outline around the fighter has changed. It was red and now it's blue. Now the AI will be paying attention to what you do, right? So it's collecting all the data now. I'm just going to turn it off. And once you turn it off over here, now it's not collecting data. So whatever you show it, it doesn't pay attention. And of course, it's annoying to having to keep going up here to click the button. So we have a keyboard shortcut. You can just click the shift right key on a keyboard, right? And it just toggle it. Oh, I guess if you toggle it too many times, this happens quickly. But you can just toggle it. And this is very, very good. For example, if you want to show it to jump back onto the platform, you jump off, turn it on, and then jump back on, right? And then, so why do I do it this way? Because imagine you were collecting data the whole time and you jump off and then jump back on. What the AI is going to learn is say, okay, when I'm close to the edge, jump off the platform and then jump back on, which can be very dangerous if you jump off and then your opponent hits you. So what you only want to show it is the part when you're jumping back on. So when you jump off, have data collection turned off. Then when you're in the air, turn it on and jump back like this. And now it only pays attention to when you're coming back on stage. And this is super critical for proper training of your AI. If you're using a controller, this is just the logo button in the center over here. That's how you toggle it. We might change the button a bit later, but for now, that's what we have it as. But yeah, so that's the basics of data collection. And if at any point you want to end your training session early, you can click finish and train, or just click the escape key over here. Now, I didn't do a very useful training session, so I'll probably do another one just to show you guys proper training. So you can do retry session if you ever want to retry it. You can also return to home just to go back to the locker room if you're kind of had it enough with training. You're like, it's not my day. And you can also select a new opponent over here, a new opponent and stage. But I'll just retry the session over here for a second. I'm going to click this gear icon in the top right corner to show you guys how to change your presets. And so what you do is you have all these actions available to you, and you can just drag and drop them onto the keyboard to select a new one. Or if you're using a controller, you can drag and drop it onto any button on the controller. So for example, grab, I can move the grab, for example, to over here. And now it changes to there. And anytime that you want to save your presets, you click save over here. I'm not going to save that one because I don't like it. So if you don't save it, then you see that it reverted back to what it was before. Now, I will change something on the keyboard. So for example, left button was A. I'm going to move the left button. This is very awkward, but I'll move it to like Y, for example. And then I'll click Save Presets. And then I close it. And now when I try pressing A, it doesn't move to the left. Only when I click Y, it moves to the left. Now this is very awkward for me, so I'll change it back. Left, we'll go back here. And then just save it, and then it's saved. And the interesting thing is we actually save this in our backend and in your local storage so that if you, for example, close the site and come back, you'll have your presets ready to go. They'll be the exact same, so you don't have to set them again when you come back to the site. With that said, I'm going to show you how to actually train well. So I'll just throw the opponent here. Oh, actually, before I go into training, let me just show you the basic actions that we can take in the game. So we can run around, we can jump, and each jump, there's actually two jumps. So there's one off the ground and one in the air. You can crouch. And then those are some of the basic movements. And of course, you can like jump off walls. You can pass through platforms. So these smaller platforms are soft platforms that you can basically jump through them and go down through them. This big platform that you see here is a hard platform. And so if you try going down, it won't go through it. Additionally, if you approach the edge, you can grab onto the edge with a ledge grab over here. And you see how I jumped through this soft platform? You cannot jump through the hard platform. You'll bounce off of it and most likely die. So that's some of the basic movement. I could show you some attacks. So if you're not pressing any directions and you just grab over here, you'll be able to grab the opponent, and then you can do a few things while in grab. So you can press the punch button to punch the opponent, or you can click on any one of the directions to throw them. So for example, if I throw them up, so if I click up, it throws them up. If I click forward, it throws them forward. If I click back, it throws them back. And then if I click down, it throws them off the floor. So those are the basic throws that you can do, which is very great for comboing, which I'll show you soon. Some basic attacks is the jab. And if you do this fast repeatedly, it'll do a combo. If you hold up and click attack, it'll do an uppercut. If you hold down and click attack, it'll do a low sweep. And then if you run towards your opponent attack, it'll do a dash attack. So those are some of the on-ground movements. I'll show you some of the in-air movements. So if you jump and click up and attack, it'll do an uppercut in the air. If you hold down and attack while in the air, it does this down smash over here. You'll see that I'm about to run out of time, so I'll just like restart the session. If I jump in the air and just do a neutral attack, it'll just do that. So for example, something like that you can combo into. If you hold back so actually before I explain that, let me show you something. So if I jump and move backwards, you see that my fighter doesn't change direction, right? And this is just to allow you to do something called a back air. So if I jump, hold back, and press the attack button, it does a special attack like that, which is called the back air. And this is generally more powerful than like the neutral air. So yeah, so you can do something like that. And then we also have special attacks. So you see in the bottom corners that our agents were powering up. So mine is the fire special. So if I press L, once you see that it's like fired up over here, then it does the fire special over there. But you can also do other attacks with the special button. So for example, you can charge up a headbutt and let it go. There you go. And I think I'm just going to kill the opponent. But of course, you don't have to charge it, right? You can just do like a quick headbutt over here. But the more you charge it, the more powerful the attack is going to be. And then finally, we have the flip kick. This one, if you hold up and special at the same time. Oh, and there's one more. While in the air, if you hold side special, it'll do that. All right, almost done and ready to show you training. There's one other thing I want to show you guys, which is that you'll see that this is like the highest you can get with the double jump, but we have certain attacks that give you additional height. So for example, if you use the uppercut, now you can get even more height. And then if you combine that with the flip kick, you get even more height. And this is really good for learning how to get back onto stage. So for example, from down there, you can use something like that. Even if you're feeling just adventurous or just want to have fun, you can try seeing if you can get from one side of the stage to the other just by jumping, right? And yeah, that's basically most of the movements, guys. So with that said, I'll restart again, and I'll just show you guys a very basic training. So start from here. What I'll do is I'll throw the opponent into the center. And the only thing I'm going to show it is basically run towards the opponent and hit it, okay? So I'm going to turn data collection on, run, and then hit it. And then I turn it off after I'm done hitting it, okay? I'll move it back into the center because this is the only thing I'm training. I turn it on, run towards the center, and hit it. And you notice I turn it off afterwards because I want to reposition it, and then I want to get into position, right? Because if I had it on the whole time, then it's going to learn to kind of push around the opponent, and that's not what I want to teach it. I specifically want to teach it this, okay? So just run, hit it, do the same thing again. I did it a few times, so it probably understood it a little bit. Now, one thing you'll notice is that I was always facing the fighter while I was showing this. And one critical concept in machine learning is this concept of balancing your data sets, right? Because if you only show it one thing, then the AI is just going to know how to do that, right? And so what you want to do is you want to show it, like you have to be very specific with a lot of these models sometimes, right? Because for example, if you want the AI to consider your direction that you're facing, you also have to show it what to do when facing the opposite direction, right? So let's say you're facing the opposite direction, then you're going to turn it on and then run towards your opponent, right? So now your AI knows that not only when you're facing your opponent to run towards it, but also when you're facing away to run towards it and hit it. So I think that's pretty much it for this training session. I'm going to click escape over here to end it early because I think I've showed it enough. Then I'll go into training configuration. And this is where we can really make the model our own, right? You have a simple configuration if you're not really too comfortable with some machine learning concepts. You can just select the training intensity, which is essentially how much do you want it to incorporate the current data that you just showed it. You can select low, moderate, or high, where high is you want it to incorporate a lot of that and really change the policy. Low is, I kind of only want a marginal change. Focus area is you tell the AI where you want it to focus, right? So you can tell it, for example, I want you to focus on the opponent's positioning when you're making decisions, or I want you to focus on the health when you're making decisions, right? And then we have this thing called data cleaning. This is more experimental. We're still working on this, so we'll see how that pans out in the beta. This is still an area of research and development for us. But yeah, we'll kind of see what happens. So we have this one thing here called remove sparsity. And so, for example, let's say you're collecting data and you're not doing anything, right? Now the data set becomes what we call sparse, right? Because if you don't do something, or let's say you have like 20 frames in between every action that you take, your data set is sparse because there's a lot of nothing in there, right? And so we allow you to remove all this nothing and just fill it with high quality actions that you're showing it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And so usually I recommend removing sparsity if you always want your AI to kind of be doing something and not have these like blank frames where it just kind of stands there. I'll actually go to the advanced config though, because I'm more comfortable with this. I probably won't be explaining all this right now, but I'll happily do a separate session on this. And we're going to have tutorial videos walking through this. But I'm just going to do something that I know kind of works. So I specifically want to train my opponent to run, my AI to run towards the opponent and hit it. So the two most important things, I think, are the distance to your opponent and the angle to your opponent. And the angle is kind of like 360 degrees. So this will tell it if it's on the right side or the left side, right? I'm going to remove sparsity, but I'm going to do this other thing called multi-stream. It's an algorithm that we made in-house. I don't have time to get into it right now, but I'll just do it. And again, if anyone's interested, I'll happily explain it afterwards. So if I train the model, you're going to see something start happening. So the probability of punching increased by 17%. And the probability of moving right started also increasing. That's cool, right? Because my opponent is, and if I switch direction, it's something pretty similar. But my opponent's to the right of me, so it's saying increase the probability of moving to the right and punching them. And if they're to the left of me, you saw that it increased the probability of moving to the left and punching them as well, which is super cool. Now, what you'll notice is that it didn't really move the needle so much. And that's because I have epochs at a low number. So epochs is basically the number of times that you apply a sort of an update to your model. It's a bit more technical than that if you include like batch sizes, but just think about it this way. The higher the number of the epochs, the more updates you're doing to your model. So if I crank this up to 50 and I train model, you'll see that the model will reset to its initial, and then you'll see how it starts changing. Now it's really increasing the probability of moving left, right? So it completely shifted it because the old policy was this red line over here. And now this is the new one. And so it really changed the probability now. If I move to the right side, it did the same thing. It started increasing the probability a lot more. And so you can dial up and down how much you want your AI to learn from what you just showed it. And here, also the probability increased by 37%. And that isn't that cool? We just showed our AI to run towards the opponent and hit it. Anyway, I think this is super cool. And so when you're ready, you can click here at Save Your Model, and then you'll get a pop-up over here. Again, this is just to confirm that it's you that owns the previous model that we're trying to override. We'll click Sign. Now it just created a new model, pushed it onto IPFS, and it gave us back the hash. And now we're just going to confirm to push the hash onto the blockchain. So once we confirm, this will just take a second or so. Boom. Now our model is on the blockchain, our updated model. And if we refresh the page over here, just give it a second. Now you see that this is the new policy now. So our new policy that we just showed the AI has been updated on the blockchain, and we can actually use it in battle. I said a lot of stuff. I'm going to pause. I'm sure there are some questions.
Yes, sir. So Spaceman asset, there's a bit of echo going on there. Spaceman asset is a further range projectile than the fire one that you displayed.
Yeah, let me show you guys. There is. So the fire is actually the shortest range projectile. Each of them has its own pros and cons. So I can go in here and show you guys the electric one. Yeah, I'll go in and show you the electric. So I'll just hop back into here. So this is my electric girl. And again, I probably shouldn't have refreshed the page because now it has to reload all the animations, but I won't refresh it for the next time that I show you the water special. So this will be super quick, hopefully. While this is loading, is there any other questions?
Yes. Spaceman also asked, can you fast forward after jumping?
Fast forward after jumping. What do you mean by that?
Fast forward.
Fast fall. Oh, yes, you can. Someone's been studying. So you see, this is the regular fall over here. But there, if I just hold down at a certain peak, it'll fall really fast versus this is just the regular one, right? So yes, you can fast fall like there versus, yeah. And also you'll notice that this fighter is not able to jump as high as the previous one because this one's a bit heavier. Oh, now we have the electric charged up. I'll show you what that looks like. So this is a farther range projectile and it goes really, really far. I'll go home and I'll switch to my dendroid, which is a water type. And then I'll go into training. And like I mentioned before, because we cache everything, this is really fast. It loads instantly now. So I'll just start this up. We'll just wait for the water element to load. While it's loading, does anyone have any other questions?
DQ asks, like, is there any way you pause off the platform?
That you what off the platform?
How do you pause off the platform? I mean,
pause.
I think did you pause like while training? Is there a pause button? I think that's what he's trying to ask.
Oh, this up here. Yeah, this pauses the game. You'll see that the time has stopped up here. When you click on this menu, it pauses it.
Okay. While we are here, OX Gunter asked that can you remap the data collection button, the on-off button?
Great question. No, for now. We are working on this. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough time in time for the beta to remap it. I would explain the complexity of it, like the actual engineering, like why it's a little bit of a headache. It's different than the rest of the remapping. I'll kind of explain at a high level. Like the data collection exists outside of the core game loop, and in order to actually start saving stuff like onto the blockchain, we need to have access to the data outside of the core component, which is the game. And so the mapping kind of lives in the game, and we technically could remap within the game. That's easy, but remapping outside of the game is a little more difficult. We could potentially do this sort of right now. We have this thing to set this within the game. We could possibly move this outside of the game, and that'll allow it. But for now, we have a lot of other stuff that we're kind of focused on. So it's by default. So even if you try kind of like going over the shift key, it won't remap anything to that, because that's sort of like a fixed one, similarly to the escape key, because that's to exit the game. However, we will likely have something in the future in order to do that remapping, but for now, it's not necessarily a priority.
Yep. I think we're good for now.
Okay, cool. Let me do the water special just to show you. Now, the water specials is a little different, is that this one hits multiple times. So you'll see it hit the opponent 3 times over here, and once it hits the 3rd time, then it'll disappear. But if, for example, your opponent has lost a lot of damage, then some of the individual hits could be so powerful that it doesn't link up for the following ones. But that's just something to be cognizant of. But yeah, so I would say the electric is the farthest range, water is the medium, and the fire is the shortest range. But they each have their pros and cons. And actually, let me show you guys something. If I try and fight my AI, so now the wireframe is using my AI. So you'll see it's actually coming and attacking me. And I'll move to the other side. Oh, I guess there you go. And it tried attacking me. Keep in mind that a lot of this stuff is probabilistic. So there's a probability that it's going to do stuff. It's not guaranteed. But you'll see that it's like, with a good probability, it's running towards me and attacking me. I'll just stop it because I'm tired of getting beat up. Oh wait, this is not the girl. This is another AI that I trained. Hold on, let me go back to the girl just to show you guys. This is my girl. Let me, I don't want to do a simulation. I just want to do the training just to show you guys. Okay, now this should be a lot more. Yeah, perfect. So it's just following me around and attacking me no matter where I go. Isn't that cool? We just taught it how to do this, and it's executing it like really, really well. Anyway, I'll pause for a second. So yeah, guys, that's the core loop at a high level. And then, of course, when you're feeling ready, you can kind of enter your AI into simulation to see how it does against one of our pre-made AIs, or you can enter it into ranked battle over here. And once you enter into ranked battle, it'll kind of show you quickly how it looks. Is that it'll search for an opponent in the back end. Once it finds an opponent, you'll basically have to sign this MetaMask transaction. The purpose of this is to send a little bit of gas to the back end, because we process the entire match on the back end and then push the result to the blockchain from the back end. And so we need a little bit of gas in order to make that push. It's very minimal, as you see. But yeah, that's just it. And then once we confirm that you actually did send us the gas, then we'll run the battle, update your record on the blockchain as well as some of our databases, and then send you back the results into the front end to start watching. I'll just reject for now, but I hope this makes sense. And that's basically a walkthrough of the game at a high level. Does anybody have any more questions, or are you guys pumped to battle in the arena?
Oh, I wish you can see the comment here. People are pumped.
People are pumped. I'm pumped,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'm pumped. The whole team's been working their asses off on this, so we really, really hope you guys enjoy it. Yeah, we've been grinding on this. This is our baby. So yeah, we're very excited to see you guys play the game. Excited to get some feedback, and more excited to see some awesome AIs in the arena.
All right, sounds good. People are kind of interested in the defensive mechanism, but I don't know. Do we have time?
Oh, I can show real quick. Sorry guys, I didn't actually walk through that. As you can tell, I like attacking a lot. Let me just let me just walk into here.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, like this is a high-level tutorial. There would be more in-depth like segments to teach you
Yes.
the in and out of it. Don't worry, in the coming days.
Yeah, this game has an enormous amount of depth. What I'm just showing is the really high level. In order to defend, right now I have it mapped to the shift left key, but you basically have the shield, and as soon if it runs out while you're still holding, um, oh, we have to actually fix that. It has to go up a little and add some FX. Um, but basically, like you're stunned for a little if you hold your shield for too long. So if you just want to try and spam it, don't do that because you'll be punished very badly. But it is good to do once in a while if you feel like your opponent is threatening you to hit the shield and it'll block them. Um, I should really remove that. And so, yeah, and you'll notice that the longer you hold it, the more your shield health goes down. And then if your opponent hits your shield, it goes down even more. But the longer that you're kind of like outside of the shield, it starts regaining its health back. And now you can start launching it at full power again. Additionally, when you hold that button and you click aside, it'll roll, right? So you'll roll right past your opponent. And you're immune for a few frames in which you're rolling, so you won't be able to get hurt. And this is great for getting into certain positions. For example, if your opponent is continually attacking you, you can do that, start attacking them back, or you can maybe like you can roll, grab them, throw them, and start comboing. So yeah, those are the main defensive mechanisms. We're thinking of adding in some more. I don't want to say what it is. I don't want to commit to it yet. But yeah, there might also be like a defensive mechanism in the air. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Any other questions?
I think we're good for now, and we're about reaching time. Good, like a 60, 70 minutes. So
Cool.
we will see you in the coming days.